حتبو دوا دواء حتب دي نسو وصار نبجدو نتشرعة نبقى بجو راني عمرو مريمات أنوك سيبا نيمدو نتشر which means my name is Amro Marimaat and I am a teacher of the language which called Midu Netsche. This broadcast is going to be on English and I hope it's going to be very informative to the subject above, which is the origin of Afrocentrism or the origin of Afro-centered movement. Now, I've been doing a lot of live broadcasts in Arabic and trying to reach people as much as I can from both sides. I have to make a clear point that I live in Khartoum, Sudan. I am a Sudanese, and there is an uprising going in Sudan since December 25th. And it's been a month and more, and there's a lot of arrest happening on by the Khartoum, by the Islamic government. And we want to reach out for our people out there, and because the Arab media are not helping us, they're not giving us any broadcasting on their networks. So, and the reason is quite deep. That's why I'm doing this in English, because you need to understand something, or as we say it in New Age spirituality, you need to understand few things. The one thing that we are all, as African people, have in common is that we are all been misplaced, abused, and enslaved by other races, let's say. Now, if you cannot face the fact that you are being enslaved, being displaced from your own spirituality, from your own consciousness, then you cannot free yourself internally, psychologically, as long as you think that everything is going to be all right. And now you see what's going on in the Sudan uprising right now. It's everything now, it's changing. And this changing, the core of it is an ancient fight. We're talking about ancient, we're talking about 1,000 years ago, we're talking about 2,000 years ago. And Sudan is a crucial place for all the continent of Africa. Now, going back to the origin of Afrocentrism, Afrocentric movement. Now, when we talk about Afrocentric movement, when we talk about Eurocentric, when we talk about Arab-centric, Arab League, we are not speaking about racism. We're not speaking about this is a racial war. No, we are simply talking about the centered ideology that brings the movement into existence. What I mean is this: if there is no solid foundation, you cannot make or change or have a fundamental agreement if you don't have a solid foundation. By saying this is that Sudan has been in a war for 50 years, and this war is for the identity, because we are African who've been Arabized. Now let me make a very important statement here. When we talk about being Arabized, I'm talking about a choice that we have made because we have accepted the religion of Islam, and that is not a bad thing. I am not going to sit here and to fight you over religion. I'm above this now. And no matter how high in spirituality ones go, people always try to take your consciousness to the lowest level. And sometimes there is an urgency to do so. But most of the time, we need to keep it clean. We need to keep it as civilized as it should. Now, before the Medu Necha, which is the language, the hieroglyph, there was no Afro-centered ideology. By means is that ideology or foundation comes from a solid ground, data, knowledge, and information. So the guy who originated the Afro-centered movement is Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. Sheikh Anta Diop. He's from Senegal. Now, before Sheikh Anta Diop, the fight for the African movement didn't have a solid ground. It didn't have a background. Now let's make this clear. When I was doing my workshop in meditation, I was trying to give people my own experience on how you can reach high levels of consciousness. So what I was doing in my workshop is I was trying to give my experience with my own meditation on how you can reach this high level of consciousness. So I did it in a clean, civilized way. But people or the masses didn't quite understand me, and they thought that meditation might be some kind of a luxury or some kind of a clearing the mind and relaxation. That is absolutely away from the truth. Meditation is a way of reaching the highest level of your consciousness and to reach the inner divinity, because we are divine beings having a physical experience. So this is the most important thing. So what I did earlier, what I did is that afterwards I try to talk about the religion. I tried to talk about maqamat and nafs, and I made a video talking about the levels of consciousness in Sufism, because that's the way you can reach the people, the Sudanese people, to give them something that they have a ground for it. Later on, I used to speak about the chakras, which are points of consciousness. Now, what we are trying to tell the people is that the coming of this new age is our own spirituality. Like Barack Obama said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Which means that you are the divine being. You are God inside. You are not the whole creation. You are part of the creation. This is crucial. This is important. People need to understand this. And this is crucial because we've been doing high level of consciousness and high level of spirituality, and we have reached a good understanding of what the soul and the spirit is. And we want to share it with people. We want to give people our experience. We want to tell them about how we can conquer our own demons. So we are winning. We are winning because I'm doing it here in Sudan, which is a very conservative society ruled by a very aggressive Islamic regime. And let's talk about 30 years ago, there is a man called Mahmoud, Al-Ustaz Mahmoud Muhammad Taha, and he talked about the divinity inside, and he got executed by the Islamic government. We have to say this again and again and again so you can understand where we're coming from. Concerning the Afrocentric movement, a little bit of history. Now, Sudan, after we kicked the English out of Sudan 50 years ago, we started what is called as a Sodana, they call it. You got to understand words now. A Sodana means to make the institutions and the government lead by Sudanese people. Now, what happened at that time is that a Sodana, it changed into a Sawada. So people, there becomes an Arab culture putting in the behavior of the Sudanese people. So much so that if I want to become a good Sudanese or become a well-known Sudanese, I have to have a connection with Saudi Arabia, and I have to advance my Arabic language. Why? Because, and this is by default, if you're a Muslim, then you need to advance your Arabic languages. Your Arabic language, you study the Quran. Now, if you want to have a solid, grounded spiritual system, which is ancient, which is our own ancestors, you should go with the Midu Necha. The Midu Necha is a language in itself, and inside the language there is a knowledge of the life and the afterlife. And this is what the Midu Necha looks like. which is hieroglyphs. So these glyphs have sound values, have meanings, and have interpretations. But before we speak about that, let's go back to the Afrocentered, how it begins. Now, the uniqueness of the movement is that you cannot start a movement without a clear foundation. So before we found out that the Midu Necha is a language, and it's actually an African language, we couldn't have an African literature. We couldn't have an African consciousness. This is how important this thing is. This is how groundbreaking this knowledge is, because it's something that you can lay your back on, something that have a credibility in it. We're talking about the language, the Midu Necha. We're talking about the scriptures in ancient places, here in Sudan, in Egypt. The Nile Valley civilization. We're talking about the language that we already have it. Now, we do not want to go and just speak about how cute the language is, and there is connection with the Sudanese language like ta, wata, which is land, and there's a lot of words in Sudanese and in Midu Necha, but this is not the point. The point is to learn the language, to learn the fundamentals of the language. Then afterwards, you can go and search on your own and found your own interpretation. You can make your own interpretation, but before that, you need to at least have the fundamentals, the grammars of the language. The language, again, it's called Midu Necha or Ra Nikamet. Ra, which means mouth, and Kemet, which means the black land. We call it Sudan. We call it Sudan, which means the black land. And that means we are talking about our own language. We have 320 languages in Sudan, and they're all respected. But we are talking about the national language, the language of the constitution, the language of the country, the mouth of Sudan, the Ra Nikamet, the mouth of Kemet and Kush. And do not get twisted between Kush and Khartoum and Egypt or Kemet, because some people, they trying to make some kind of difference between, they were trying to make a wall between Egypt and Sudan. I'm talking about ancient time, and I'm talking about the unification of the two lands. Now, there's two kinds of unification I'm talking about here. There is the unification between the land, the happy land, which is Sudan and Egypt. And there is the unification between your lower and your upper consciousness. So there is always a message. There is always hidden meanings. There is always there's always a searching of something. Now, this language, Midu Necha, the hieroglyph, this language is the language of the researcher, the decipherer, the one who wants to know about his own life. And we living here in the Happy Valley, in the Nile Valley. So we are, this is our right to learn this language, to make it a national language. So what we are trying to do is trying to establish a new foundation. Because when the Islamic regime falls in the next few weeks or so, we need to have a solid foundation. We need to have something that we can rely on. We're talking about our language, the Midunetcha, the language of our ancestors. Now back to how Arab-centered movement came about. Now, when Sudan got liberated from the British Army, British colonization, they did something which is a unification of the Arab land, which is National Arab Movement led by Gaddafi, who is it in Egypt? Jamal Abdel Nasser and Al-Azhari here in Sudan. So they made some kind of an agreement on a national Arabic movement. This movement, for it to exist, it needs for you to have an Arab nationality. But this is a problem, because Sudanese people are not Arabs. Sudanese people are African people. So what happened is, the people in the south had a rebel movement called Anyanya 1 and Anyanya 2. And after that, the movement becomes stronger when it led by Dr. John Garang Dimapiu and Khuja Sanep. Dr. John Garang Dimapiu started a movement, and now this movement is coming to Khartoum. It's the same movement. So if you are not searching for the fundamental, which is Dr. John Garang speak about, the fundamental, which is the identity. If you're speaking about gas, if you're speaking about the piece of bread, if you're speaking about what is it called? Whatever, anything that is not in the core of our own dilemma, our own case, which is the freedom, the freedom of the Sudanese people from Arabism. I'm going to say this one more time just to make it clear. The movement is to free from Arabism. Now, you cannot free from Arabism if you don't have an African consciousness. It's a big problem because people are being enslaved for a long time, and spiritual slavery or mental slavery is the worst. That's why we are suffering right now. We have been suffering for a long time because we have lost our spirituality, we have lost our own divinity, because we are the divine beings. We have lost our language. But guess what? This is the time for us to gain our own spiritual system, which is rooted in the Midunetcha, the language. So now we have a back to lay our to lay our back on. We have a foundation. We're talking about foundation. We're talking about something that is grounded, something that can unite us. Something came from an African spirit, an African reason. You are speaking Arabic because one in a time you have been broodedly enslaved by the Romans. So the Muslim came from the Arab Peninsula, and they have brought the Islam, and it's a good thing. When we're talking about the good deeds in Islam, it's a good thing. But this is the new thing now. It's time you can up your levels. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment below, and I can come back later and discuss it. Hotepu, brother Robert Morgan, what's up? Brother Hussam Ad-Din, what's up? A new nationality and a great love for this land will be based on knowledge. Yeah, exactly. It's a good statement. A new nationality, a great love for this land will be based on knowledge and research, of course, and spirituality. Now, I'm going to say this, trying to express it as much clear as I can. God is within. Allah is within. This is Sufism. And Sufi, it means the one who has hair like a Suf. That's what a Sufi means. Sufi, it's not it's not a religious thing. It's not a spiritual thing. It's a something that you call when you see someone with dreadlocks. Like nowadays, people with the dreadlocks, they call them Rasta. In ancient time, they used to call them Sufi. So that's what it is. Now we are beyond that now. We used to have a chance before the Islamic regime took over. We used to have a chance to experience a Sufi spirituality. Like Sudan becomes the door for Sufism, for inner spirituality. But this time now is over, because now we have our own ancient spirituality, which is coded in the language, it's coded in the Medu-Netia. I hope that was clear. And support Sudan uprising, man. If you are in the United States, if you are in Europe, if you are in Africa, everywhere, support the Sudan uprising. It's for all of us. This thing is big than you and me. It's a big thing. And we are finding new things, wonderful things. Like what is his name? Carter, the man who found the tomb of Tutankhamun. When he found the tomb, he opened the tomb, he said, the helper asked him, what do you see? He said, I see wonderful things. It's really, what I see from now, I see beautiful things happening. I see people from the United States uniting with us in Sudan, which is happening spontaneously, very strong bond we have. I see Sudanese people uprising, trying to change the regime. I see people united together. I see new life, new new ideology, new spirituality. Divinity is inside of you. Don't let anyone fool you. You need to wake up. You need to wake up. And for the Sudanese people, I made a video معراج من الداخل. عملت فيديو on مقامات النفس, which is the levels of consciousness for the Arabic speaking. Go and check it out. I don't want someone to stay here and say, oh, I don't understand this guy, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Naga, wake up. Now, I don't want to use some bad words. Greetings, dua'u, Sister Deborah, عن خجا سنب. What is happening here is a connection. We call it the unification of the two lands. I'm talking about Sudan and the United States. Because in the United States, there's a special people who have enriched themselves with Kemetic spirituality. They have a wisdom. They have consciousness. They incarnated in the United States to help us and to guide us. And we here in Sudan, we give them love, respect. We give them hotapu, dua'u, anх uja, seneb. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. Now, you got to understand that the Islamic regime is falling. And this is a big deal, because Islamic regime has been ruling Sudan for 30 years. That's right. And 30 years is a long time. But now, when the Islamic regime is falling, we are rising. And we've been rising from day one. We've been rising even before we know about the Midu Necha. We've been speaking about consciousness. We've been speaking about divinity inside of you. To close out, the origin of Afro-centered movement started with Sheikh Anta Diab when he found the Midu Necha, when he found the language, and actually the language was dead before Sheikh Anta Diab and Dr. Rekati Amin in the United States. Before Dr. Rekati Amin and before Sheikh Anta Diab and Brother Patah Sika Osar, the language was dead. By meaning is that it used to be studied in the Egyptology classes, and it used to be called hieroglyph. And we talked about this hieroglyph. It's a Greek word, means divine scripture or divine writing. You got hiero, which means divine, and glyph, which means writing. So when we came out with the Midu Necha, which means divine words, because Madu means words, and Necha means divine, means nature. So when we came about with Midu Necha, we put life into the language. We make it alive again. We put soul into the language. We feel the language in our hearts. When we read Midu Necha, we feel it. So my advice to you is, if you want acknowledgement, if you want to advance your knowledge of consciousness of the language, go check out the Afro scholars. There's a lot of them. Check out Obadala Kabum in Ghana. There's a lot of scholars talking about the Midu Necha now, because the Midu Necha is our language. Nobody's gonna do it for us. Nobody's gonna tell us that Midunecha is our language. We have to say it. Freedom, you have to take it. Remember? Like Malcolm X used to say, freedom is taken. You take your freedom. Nobody's gonna give it to you. Now the Midunecha, they're not gonna give it to us. We need to take it. If you need to advance your knowledge of the language, check out the books. Check out my book. Check out Rakati Amin's book. Check out the work of Sheikh Anta Diab. Check out the work of the people who are trying to give the African community all over the world a new start, a new foundation, a new spirituality, which is based on the ancestors. So Hatapu Taba'u, that means blessing to the ancestors. I think that's pretty much covered. And please go check out our page, which is called Midunecha in Arabic, Midu and Neter, and in English is Midu Necha, MDU, MDW, NTR. Check always. You can always check our group also, which is Sashu Nimadunecha, which means scribes of Midu Necha. In Arabic, that is Sashu Nimadu Necha. In Arabic, كتاب لمد النتر. عربي فصحى ده. كتاب لمد النتر. How beautiful is this? It's a classical language. It's more superior than the Arabic language. Nobody's gonna tell you that, because Arabic you got the Quran, which is the spiritual system. So the Muslims do not accept that, and by being Muslim, by default, you would think that Arabic is the most superior language. That is not the case. The most spiritual language and the most superior language is the Midunecha. That's how I'm speaking from my heart, and I'm speaking like Patah, speaking from my heart, and I speak Ma'at when I tell you that the Midunecha is our own language, is our own spirituality. We have united, we are moving forward, and we are changing the whole system. So it's time to wake up. It's time to learn the language of your own ancestors. I'm gonna finish up with an offering, a divine offering of a divine formula, which I made myself for the Necha Pa'ir Mak. Pa'ir Mak is a Necha, is a lion deity. A lion deity. The temple of Pa'ir Mak, we got two temples in a place called Musawwarat al-Safra, which is near Khartoum, and the temple is well preserved. The temple is for the lion deity. The lion deity is called Pa'ir Mak, which means Pa means the, Ir means protector, the protector. Pa'ir Mak, Mak means the watcher. So Pa means the, Ir means the watcher, and Mak means the protector. So you got Pa-ir Mak, which means the one who protects and guard. So people call him Abadamak. Abadamak. معبد أبادماك. معبد أبادماك في منطقة البقراوية. Pa-ir Mak. طيب. The formula goes like this. Netcher, نفر. رو رسي. ع نتشر. با إرمكي. او جي اف. سي اف. تب عاوي. دوا خونتشر با إرمكي. I'm going to translate it. Netcher, nefer, beautiful, divine. Ru, resi. Ru means lion, and res means the south. Ru, resi. A, netcher, or netcher a, which means great nature. A netcher. Pa-ir Maki, which Pa-ir Mak, Abadamak. Netcher nefer. Ru resi. A netcher. Pa-ir Maki. Ojef CF. The one who sees. The one with the eye. The Wuja. OJF. He's got the eye. And the one who can see. CF. Tab Awi. That's the ancestors, the protectors of the ancestors. Now let me tell you something. You need to accept and acknowledge the power that you can get from your ancestors. And this is not in Medu Necha, it's everywhere. This is the indigenous practices. We need to revive the indigenous practices in Sudan. So if you're from the Nuba mountain, you're a Kujuri, you practice in Kujur, that's an indigenous, respected spirituality. All African spirituality, all African indigenous spirituality are respected. So when the Medu Necha comes, it comes to revive all the African indigenous spirituality. Let me finish up with saying that